So I'm going to be talking to you today about bacteriophages. And bacteriophages is something I've been working kind of in close relation to for the past year. I've been working with a biotech company that specializes in bacteriophage technology. And so I've come to kind of accumulate quite a bit of knowledge through that. And I thought it'd be very relevant to BioLadies to do a talk about this. Because of the application as well to as a natural solution to antibiotics. So as an alternative antibiotic, which is derived from nature. So sorry if you hear any noise. My flat's got very thin windows, but hopefully it's okay. So I just thought I'd do a bit about me and then how I came to work with bacteriophages and my kind of my experience. So I studied at UCL, I studied biochemistry and was introduced to bacteriophages there as really the molecular biology of it. I'll give a bit of an intro into what a bacteriophage is as well, but I just thought this would be a good introduction to start with. Last year, I began working as a startup consultant, working in commercialization. And so through that, I started working with FixPhage, and they have a bacteriophage technology that specifically you can bind a bacteriophage to those different materials, making it essentially an antimicrobial material. And so through this work, I looked at lots of different markets and how bacteriophages could be applied to different bacterial challenges. So I've just finished working with Rapid Innovation Group and doing that work, and I'm now going to be starting a master's in control of infectious diseases at LSHTM, and I really hope to be able to apply this knowledge that I've accumulated so far and hopefully do a project later next year on bacteriophages. So what are bacteriophages? You're probably all asking now. So traditionally, a virus will infect, well, you'll know viruses that infect humans and also viruses that infect plants. So here we have a virus that will infect a plant. These are both human infecting viruses. You might see this and have horrible flashbacks to pictures of coronavirus. This is indeed the shape of a coronavirus, but bacteriophages are very different. They infect, they're the viruses of bacteria and archaea, as opposed to humans or eukaryotes in general. And so a bacteriophage is called a complex virus. It has a very particular structure in that it has a head containing its genetic information. Most of that will be DNA. Most bacteriophages will have DNA. Only 2 families of bacteriophage have RNA. And this is compatible with certain bacteria. And so the bacteriophage could be specific to certain species of bacteria, different genome of bacteria, or it could have lots of different bacteria that it can infect and ultimately kill. So it is a natural antimicrobial, and bacteriophages live alongside bacteria. So where you find bacteria, you'll find bacteriophages. And ultimately, they are responsible for killing half the world's bacteria every 2 days. So this is a natural phenomenon, just happens, which you'll probably have never heard of before. Like I hadn't, even during lectures at UCL, it was never mentioned about, how how prolific they are in nature. It was more an emphasis on like the molecular biology of and how they can be used to manipulate bacteria. So that I hope gives a little overview. The structure here, then I can show you a bit more of how it works. So how do bacteriophages kill bacteria? So as you saw in the structure before, it has a weird head-shaped feature that contains the DNA. The bacteriophage will attach onto a bacteria and inject its DNA into the bacteria cell. Within the bacteria cell, the bacteriophages will then propagate, so lots of new copies of bacteriophages will be made. And during this time, the bacterial cell might be swimming around, it might be inside a human, it might be in just some murky water, it could be wherever the bacteria is living, it'll be moving around, and it could be for a long period or short period, And at a certain point, depending on chemical triggers, the bacteria will burst open, essentially dying, and release tens and tens of copies of that phage, that original phage that entered in. And these bacteriophages will now be free to be floating around in a new part of the water or wherever the bacteria has moved to, and then can continue on this cycle of infecting new bacteria and essentially controlling. They are essentially a natural mechanism to control the population of bacteria. So how can this be harnessed in a product? So as I was saying before, I was working with the bacteriophage company to explore where their technology could be used. And in the past, say 20 years, maybe since 2000, there have been quite a few biotech companies that have been specializing in bacteriophages. And they've picked certain industries and areas where there are really big bacterial challenges. So this could be, so for instance, we were looking at livestock and aquaculture for quite a while. And a new thing that's coming through is obviously with the protein deficit that's going to happen in, 10 or so years time as we're incapable of feeding the population, there has been a surge in recirculating systems for fish. But with this comes the challenges of bacterial problems for those fish, particularly salmon. There's quite a few bacterial challenges. And so this phages are proposed as a solution that could be easily dropped into the water and be mixed up with the recirculating system, hopefully tackling any biofilms that might form in the tanks, or helping to address the bacterial diseases that would spread very quickly in the recirculating system. With this also, we're looking at diseases in poultry, which are incredibly controversial in terms of a lot of the time farmers can't say if there is certain diseases they don't want to own up. They don't want to be looking to tackle, for instance, Campylobacter, because that is found in so much poultry. But with the resurgence really of no antibiotics ever, chicken in the US, and with also in the EU, zinc oxide for pigs is being banned. There's a real need for different solutions for farm animals to halt the spread of bacterial diseases. We're also looking, so this delightful looking potato, it has bacterial sufferer, which can actually decimate whole farmers' crops in one go. And so applying a phage solution could prevent the bacteria from spreading when the potatoes are in storage and stop the loss of huge crops. So traditionally, phages have been looked at as applications for human health, looking at it as particularly at the moment for AMR, so Staph aureus, and really a lot of research is being done at the moment on skin conditions. So bacterial skin conditions such as acne can be treated with phages, but it's still, in trial stage, which I'll show before. And one last thing that I read about, and also through discussions with, I think it was the National Biofilms Innovation Center, they were saying how phages would be a great application to medical and industrial biofilm issues. So when bacteria all clustered together and kind of create a colony, which is sometimes you can't get antibiotics through to it, or it's very hard to remove. And so phages can actually penetrate a biofilm and remove this obstacle. So just to give you a bit of history to phage treatment, as it's kind of strange that people don't know a lot about it, even though it seems to be something that really can rival antibiotics in the use of it. To give a bit of overview, it was discovered in the early 20th century by two different researchers. However, it was only really picked up by the Soviet Union. The West really, there wasn't a lot of research going into it because it arrived at a similar time as antibiotics, as penicillin being discovered. And so with that, scientific advancement favored antibiotics, and phages were really left behind in terms of developing treatments. There was also the two problems with phages. Is because they're a naturally occurring organism, they have a lack of stability and longevity. They have to be kept at fridge-like temperatures, so 4 degrees, and they have to be kept in an aqueous solution. Preferably, they need bacteria as a host. And so this creates issues when trying to make a product out of it. As you can't have it in, say, a gel or a pill, which could just be given as a medicine, as easy as antibiotics can be given. And so they would continue to be used in former Soviet countries as, in hospitals where they could just make up solutions when they diagnosed what the bacterial issue was in human health. And then they could simply mix up the phage cocktail and deliver it to the patient. And phages, they counteract the resistance issue by several different types of phages can be specific to one species of bacteria. And this means that you don't get resistance to phages, whereas you do get the resistance to antibiotics. And so this is why it has been realized really today that phages could be a solution to AMR, and a very important kind of technology that has been, I suppose, shelved for a long time, has had a resurgence in the past 20 years. There's also companies have now got the ability with CRISPR and genetic engineering to actually tweak bacteriophages to make them very specific to the bacteria that they want to kill. And in doing this, they can then, have something that's even better than the natural solution. So actually, in terms of how this has been advancing, there have been a few products that have actually received FDA approval. And there has been instances of when there's been a listeria outbreak in food, the EU has actually issued favorable court orders to ensure that a phage product can be used to tackle that listeria outbreak. It's also moving forward now in EU regulation that phages might be able to be used in food products. So just to give a quick few examples then of the companies that are working in this area, Cytophage is actually the really big European phage company. They're Dutch and they have collaborations with ETH and other universities. And they're currently working on the issues of bacterial diseases in poultry. And they're applying it to a feed additive that can be just included when the chickens are fed. And then Fixed Phage, the company I worked with, they have quite a groundbreaking technology where phages can be stuck on to different materials. And this means that they get over that stability issue. Phages then can be used at room temperature. They can have a shelf life of around about a year. And this really tackles the issue of having to have phages in really an aqueous solution. They can then be, we were looking at having them applied to salad packaging to stop bacterial rot in salad bags. Also having phages applied to animal feed, and just fed to the animals. For human health, we were looking at applying phages to bandages for diabetic foot ulcers, and also in creams or ointments for skin conditions. So another big success is Biomix. They've gone public. They're an Israeli company, and they currently have a phase 2 acne product that is being developed. They also have quite a big pipeline, but this is the one that's the highest, it's been the most developed to date. So look out on the shelves for some phage products coming soon. Thank you.